Does playing under pressure limit your performance when you're playing football? Well, you better get used to it, because for the most part, you're gonna be under constant pressure. This video is gonna make it much simpler for you to perform when you're under pressure. Near the end of the video, I'll give you a bonus tip where it will change the way you play when you get that constant pressure from the opposition. Depending on the position you're playing, the opposition that's putting pressure on you will of course change. If you are a center back, most likely you're gonna be getting the pressure if the opposition is high pressing your team. Otherwise, it's gonna be more comfortable for you to receive the ball from your goalkeeper and distribute the game. But if the opposition is high pressing, now the opposition strikers or attacking midfielders will be putting that pressure on you. Most likely, if they are losing, they're gonna wanna put that pressure on to win that ball from you and force you for your mistakes. The opposition is high pressing and putting the pressure on you, and you're a center back. Most likely the opposition goal is to trap you. What happens then is they allow you to start short. So they allow your goalkeeper to play the first ball to you as a center back. To beat this pressure, what can you do as a center back? Your goalkeeper started short, found you, and now you have the ball. And most likely the pressure that the opposition is gonna put on you is to block the central channels. So as a center back, you can't find those passing channels to your center mids or your central defensive midfielder. Then the other player that puts the pressure on most likely will cover the channel where you can't pass it back to your goalkeeper. Because what happens if you pass it to your goalkeeper will go long and you're gonna beat that pressure. So you're forced to pass to your fullback, and you passed it to your fullback. Now the opposition's goal is to trap your fullback on the corners. They can win the ball and quickly counterattack and not allow your team to switch the game. Of course, this is subject to change, but for the most part, the high pressing teams aims for this. Traps, these little traps they set so you lose the ball in the dangerous area. There are a couple of options that you can do, where you can demand your CDM to drop deep. You have extra passing options. This will allow opposition's attacking midfielder to come higher up with the CDM, so you're opening central channels for your central midfielders or attacking midfielders to receive the ball. Or you can create wider angle for your goalkeeper to pass. So now your fullbacks are pushing higher and you're basically playing that fullback role as a center back. You are getting the pressure on, but your fullback is higher, and if you pass it to your fullback, the risk zone is away from your goal. The opposition is not gonna be marking you man to man because they can't come up that high risking the central gaps. So you have these two options to break the opposition pressure, or an easy way is to just go long and avoid the central or the fullback traps from the get-go, where you can find your long options, your striker, or switching the game to your wingers could be a great option for you to avoid this high pressure from the opposition. If you're a fullback, most likely you're gonna be getting more pressure from the opposition. As I said, in the center back getting the pressure, they're gonna wanna find you, and opposition is gonna force you to play to your fullback, where you're gonna be trapped in the corners. And how do you avoid this as a fullback? The good thing is, when you're a fullback and you are getting the pressure, most likely, unlike the CM or the CDM, you're gonna be facing the opposition's net, which makes it a little bit easier because you actually can see the pressure that you're getting. Where if you have too much pressure, you can ask your center backs or CDM, whoever has the ball, not to play it to you, because it could be very dangerous for you to receive the ball when you're marked tight by the opposition. So basically the goal is to place yourself in a position as a fullback where you can see the field and you can see the pressure, and if it's too risky, you just don't ask for that ball or tell your teammates not to play it to you. But of course, like any other position, if you're fullback, winger, center back, doesn't matter. You gonna have to maximize your first touch, where your first touch is the first thing that will get you out of the pressure. Because if you have the pressure on and if you have a bad first touch, now the opposition is triggered by your bad touch, so they can come even higher and take more risks to pressure and trap you into the corner. If you're a winger, the pressure that you're gonna get is gonna be fairly similar to the fullback position, because the opposition will force your team to play the ball wide, and the opposition will aim to trap you into the corners. It is kind of a good thing, and winger is one of those positions where you get probably the lesser pressure than the other positions. Because winger is one of those positions, the opposition likes to force the ball to the wide side of the field, to you or to the fullback, where you're gonna have lesser pressure initially. But as soon as you receive the ball, you're gonna get the pressure. But you can be a little bit more comfortable mentally to receive the ball wide, because you know that you are most likely not going to get that initial pressure like your central midfielder or your central defensive midfielder. So you're going to be most of the time facing the opposition's net, where you're going to be seeing things and you're going to know when that pressure is coming to you. Sometimes the opposition's fullback be getting tighter to you as you're receiving the ball. Now you can always step away from the opposition and create yourself a bigger space to receive the ball. Most likely you're going to get more pressure as a winger if you're playing against a pacey and annoying fullback. Playing against a pacey fullback could be quite annoying. Instead of staying wide, you could make inverted run and allow your fullback to overlap, or you can go wider and further away from the fullback to actually pull them away from the position to create more space, more gaps for yourself to receive the ball. If you are playing CDM or CM, honestly, I don't think there is a way to avoid the pressure. No matter where you are on the pitch, you're gonna get that pressure. CDM, a little less, because you can always drop deep to receive the ball and kind of force yourself to face the opposition's net. But as a CM, you are not going to have that freedom, because you're going to be right in the middle, where you are right beside the opposition CM or CDM or attacking midfielder even, where you're not going to be able to get out of this pressure. As a CDM, if you get the constant pressure, drop deeper, receive the ball, and make sure you position your body to see the entire field, which will make things a bit easier for you, where you're going to be able to push your center backs further away, and now you're receiving the ball deeper, where you can see the entire field and you have options to pass. The worst case, pass it back to your goalkeeper or pass it long. Instead of learning to play under pressure as a CDM, learn to get out of the pressure, where you are creating yourself that safe zone, where you're away from the pressure and you can distribute the game easier and make your job a lot easier, where you learn to find those gaps. Only way you can do this is by scanning and shoulder checking and seeing where everybody is and where your center backs are, where the opposition is. So one thing I can suggest, if you're a central midfielder, if you don't think you are good at playing under pressure, and if you're getting constant pressure but you're losing the ball, well, it might not be the right position for you, because as a center mid, you gotta have to be prepared to learn to play under pressure. Otherwise, you're just not gonna be a good central midfielder. So you can always play the central defensive midfielder role, or you can always play the attacking midfielder role. Best way to deal with these pressures as a central midfielder is mental game. You're gonna have to improve yourself mentally so you are comfortable when you're receiving the ball under pressure. And the other way to do this is always moving and not being stationary on the field. Easy way to deal with the pressure as a central midfielder is to play 1-2 touches. If you're holding the ball longer, you're gonna invite more pressure. Now you have no option to pass the ball to, and most likely you're gonna lose the ball. So your goal should be creating angles with your central defensive midfielders or your center backs even. You can always play those 1-2 touches, just bounce it back off to your central defensive midfielder or your center backs even, and create angles where you can do 1-2 touch, created space, and receive the ball again. Because most likely the first ball you receive from your CDM or from your center backs, you're gonna be under pressure. So your goal is to get into that space with the second ball. Where how can you do this? By playing your first ball. Very simple. So your central defensive midfielder passed it to you, you passed it back. Now you give yourself wide angle where you are checking off to a space where you can receive the ball again, which you defeated the first pressure that you got. Or if the players that's marking you, following you, now you're creating a space for your central defensive midfielder to take their space and go with the ball. Or if they're not following you, now you created a space for yourself. So the secret to be successful to play under pressure as a central midfielder, I'll reveal it in a second. But first, if you're enjoying this video so far, please drop a like and subscribe to my channel. And now let's get into that. The secret to play good under pressure as a central midfielder is to hold the ball less. Because you gotta do everything you can to avoid the pressure. And the longer you hold the ball, you're gonna invite more pressure and you're gonna be less successful. Because the first ball you'll receive from your center back or your CDM, you're never gonna have the space. That is to bounce it. Bouncing means the opposition can't intercept it. The ball goes back to the player who can see the entire field. And the only way to defeat this pressure is to get yourself out of that pressure after you bounce it back. So now the second ball, you can be facing the opposition's net. Finally, we get to the attacking midfielder. and a striker. What do you do when you're under pressure as an attacking midfielder or striker? So if you're an attacking midfielder, yes, you're gonna be as under pressure as your central midfielder. But unlike the central midfielder, you have more freedom and you have chance to improvise, where your central midfielder doesn't have this option a lot, where they're gonna have to be central, because if your team loses the ball, they are where they're supposed to be. But as an attacking midfielder, this is why you're gonna have more freedom. Yes, you do have your defensive roles and you do have to be somewhat central. You are not as critical when it comes to defending as an attacking midfielder. So you can actually float more and you can actually find the gaps where you can go wider to receive the ball, almost where your winger is, force your winger to make inverted runs if you're staying wide. So you can find these gaps just by improvising more often than your central midfielders. And the other problem is playing the attacking midfielder position is the number you're wearing. Most likely you're wearing the number 10. This means that you are one of the dangerous players of your team. So the opposition just naturally puts that pressure, extra pressure on number 10s just because it's number. So more dangerous you are, the more pressure you're gonna invite from the opposition. Improvising as an attacking midfielder will move the opposition CDM. If the opposition CDM is marking you or their center back, you're actually moving them out of the position. So if you are shifting wide, if the opposition CDM is following you, now you're creating central space for your team to attack or progress the game. But if the opposition is not tracking you when you are shifting wide, now you're creating that space for yourself. So there are bonuses of playing this free role. As a striker, you'll be under constant pressure from the opposition center backs, which are probably the strongest players on the field. So yes, you're gonna be under pressure and you're gonna learn to play under pressure. If you don't do this very good, I don't think you are cut out to be a striker. So you're gonna have to learn to lean your body into that pressure, where you're using the opposition center backs to receive the ball, you're bouncing it off and going back in the 18. Most likely there is no point trying to turn or trying to avoid this pressure unless you are just one-on-one and you're not getting any help from your teammates. But if you are getting help from your teammates, from your attacking mid or from your central midfielders, you're gonna have to bounce it off. Your teammates could see your wingers, and as soon as you make a turn, get inside the 18, now your wingers can provide with their crosses to find you in the 18 for you to score. Your main goal as a striker to get tight to the center backs, make them as uncomfortable as possible, to move them out of the positions by inviting more pressure to yourself, so you can open up spaces for your attacking midfielder or central midfielder or the opposite side's winger to cut inside. So you want to actually not avoid the pressure as a striker. You want to get into pressure and make the opposition uncomfortable. And the bonus tip I talked about in the beginning, there are actually two. The first one, I already said it in the previous tips, you're gonna need to touch the ball as little as possible. No matter what position you're playing, football is not about how long you can hold the ball, how many players that you can dribble around. Football is about releasing it quick and make the game fast. The faster you make the game, and the better your team is gonna be, and the lesser pressure you're gonna be under. And the second bonus tip, which is the most important one in my opinion, how can you feel comfortable about playing under pressure? If you make things surprise, now you can't actually see the field and you're never gonna feel comfortable to receive the ball and never gonna feel comfortable to distribute the game. So the best way to do this is to always learn to position yourself where you can see the entire field. This comes with great first touch, and this comes with shoulder checking and scanning as much as you can. So you're gonna have to get a good habit of positioning your body where you can see the field and you can distribute the game and you can do a lot of shoulder checking and maximize your first touch. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please drop a like, subscribe to my channel with the notifications on, and you can find my playlist right over here. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time.